Finally tonight, the trail left by a gang who pulled off two of the biggest thefts ever from the post office. The first was in November at the main sorting office in Salisbury. The second was here at Oxford on Boxing Day night. We've reconstructed the Salisbury break-in and we've pieced together what police believe is the most likely sequence of events. For security reasons, though, we've had to conceal certain elements and we've taken some dramatic license. Everyone you see is an actor and some of the dialogue is supposition. I should add that the insurance company involved is offering a very, very big reward for information leading to conviction of the gang. It's Saturday, the 28th of November, in the cathedral city of Salisbury in Wiltshire. By 6 o'clock that evening, the sorting office was being locked up for the night.
6 o'clock, news time. This is David Bellum. Wreckage from the South African plane that crashed with 160 people on board has been spotted in the Indian Ocean.
A witness was waiting for someone in the station car park opposite the sorting office entrance. He saw two men get into what he thinks was a black VW Golf. He noticed a black Labrador on the back seat. The two other men went into the shadows and seemed to exchange something. He thinks the registration was either C or E, and the fourth man drove off in a Transit, possibly white and blue. It could have been the same men who, with at least one other, then drove into the British Rail Yard behind the sorting office.
Get the rest of the stuff down here. Right, come on, lads. We're through.
It might have taken the men at least an hour to cut their way through several doors and then carry in their gear. The drill they brought to bore through the safe room wall weighed 200 weight.
Hey, one of you give us a hand with this drill, will you? Come on.
It had a diamond-tipped cutting edge.
Come on. Right. Ready? Yeah, a minute. What's wrong with the ruddy thing? Come on!
At this stage, the gang must have realised they'd brought the wrong piece of equipment. Either they had to abandon their plan or find a replacement part.
Go and look at one of those vans in the yard. See if there's anything in there we could use. Right.
They didn't find what they needed, but they may well have seen a label giving the address of a local tool company. This hire shop was just around the corner, but for some reason another branch south of Salisbury was visited that night. This is on the busy Southampton Road. We're not sure what time the break-in happened, but perhaps if you were on the Southampton Road, that's the A36 on the outskirts of Salisbury, you remember seeing something unusual. At about 9 o'clock that night, a woman was parking opposite the sorting office. She noticed a man in a camel coat shouting to someone in the yard, who must have been one of the gang. Crisps, cigarette packets and discarded matches were found in the sorting office restroom, where presumably the burglars waited. A British Rail employee was on his way to the social club next door. He knew there shouldn't have been anyone in the sorting office, so he went to find a friend who he knew worked there.
All right, all right. Yeah, Verve, yeah. Here, is there supposed to be someone in over there tonight?
Ah, of course not. Saturday.
Well,
Why?
I just seen two blokes in there, I think.
Give over.
Well, no, they seemed to duck down behind a couple of chairs when I walked by.
Eh?
Yeah, one of them had a sort of woolly hat on, and the other a dark coat.
Sure.
Yeah.
We better go and have a look then, haven't we?
Yeah, it was over there.
It was probably about 9:20 when they checked out the building, but they saw nothing unusual.
Come on, let's go and finish our pints.
Yeah, all right.
They got away with £250,000, but they may well have been disturbed, for they left behind most of their equipment. Someone must have had a second set of drills, for similar tools to these were used 4 weeks later in the Oxford break-in. Though these burglaries happened in the south of England, this gear comes from the north. Near Leeds over 2 years ago, the drill rig was stolen from a warehouse. Then in Manchester, just 2 weeks before the Salisbury raid, oxyacetylene cutting equipment was stolen. And in Leicester, someone bought a crowbar which was left behind in the Oxford raid. The robbers brought their tools in these holdalls, including this one, a woman's brown bag, and maybe you recognise this matching pair of ladies' gloves. This plastic funnel was also found in the bag. It's been traced to a chain of shops based north of Coventry. Or maybe you recognise the spanner with Gaz or Kaz written on the sticky tape. The drilling rig is used in the building trade, but it's most unusual. Only 28 have ever been sold in Britain. What's more, this drill had been adapted with a steel plate to accommodate larger core bits. Perhaps someone from an engineering firm remembers an unusual request to make or fix this plate. And who wrote A on the outer rim of this core bit? And B on this one? Police need to know where these bits come from. Builders usually identify them with marks to monitor how much each one's been used. And where has the drill stand itself been stored since it was stolen from near Leeds 2 years ago? Police also need to trace the man seen in the camel coat, who might have had a good look at the robber in the lumber jacket. And whose was the black VW Golf and the black Labrador? The insurance company is offering an enormous reward, £50,000. Detective Chief Inspector Terry Ford is in charge of the case. We'll be talking to him in Crimewatch Update, but you can call him right now on 01 811 8055. There's the number, 01 811 8055, or you can call the incident rooms direct. The Wiltshire Police are on 0380 773 11. That's 0380, the code for devices, 77311. Or the Oxfordshire Police are on 0865 249 881. That's 0865, the code for Oxford, 249 881. Now think back, if you can, to a Monday morning 3 weeks before Christmas, 9 o'clock in the morning of Monday, December the 7th. In the university city of Oxford, Christmas shopping was getting underway, and two men, armed with a shotgun, were sitting in wait, about to terrorise the town centre. This was to be Oxford's first armed raid on a security van, and as you're about to see, several people had a go to try and stop it. Indeed, the raid was foiled, but the gunmen got away. Thames Valley Police now need your help to try to trace them. Our reconstruction starts near Balliol College in Oxford's Broad Street.
This is Erica Barnes with the Radio Oxford News on Monday, the 7th of December. Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev will land at Brize Norton Airfield in Oxfordshire later this morning for an historic meeting with Mrs. Thatcher.
At about 9 o'clock, this secretarial student, Amanda Mackenzie, arrived at her college in George Street. At the same time, a white Ford Escort van pulled in opposite the Co-op. A second man stayed sitting inside the van. The workman on the pavement was noticed by a woman who had to squeeze past him. She remembers he was short and had dark, greasy hair. At exactly 9 o'clock, a Securicorps van drew up outside the Co-op.
There's an armed robbery in progress.
A solicitor relayed news of the hold-up to the police.
Outside Three Ways House.
George Street.
George Street.
Keep back! Down! Down! Stop! I'll shoot! Stop! Stop!
They used an unusual Black Hawk hydraulic jack to try to get into the vault. Meanwhile, unseen by the robbers, this man, a local shopkeeper, Henry Dean, tried to prevent the raiders' getaway.
Get the door open! Down!
The men both wore trainers, and the gunman carried a pump-action shotgun.
Come on!
He's got a gun, pig.
The police had little option but to obey the gunman. While the raider tried to lever open the door from the outside, inside, a Securicorps guard hammered the tools back out.
Come on! Come on! Come on! Shit!
Finally, they gave up.
Where's the keys? In the van.
Come on, we'll use this! Come on!
The other man had found something to break the ignition lock.
Stay here!
This driver tried to block their way. And a guard threw an iron bar at the raiders. But the gunman seemed strangely cool. They drove up Gloucester Street and crossed Beaumont Street. Going up St John's Street, the gunman tried to shut the back doors, but nearly fell out himself. They turned out of Pusey Street into St Giles and headed north up Banbury Road. Finally, they turned off the Woodstock Road into Russell Court. Where did they go after this? The van had been stolen a month previously from the Cowley area, but where had it been for that month? And police have been unable to trace where these items came from. These large canvas bags with the nautical logo on them, and the jack, which is normally used in car body repair shops or as fire rescue equipment. Robberies always look much easier in the movies, don't they? In fact, this was no laughing matter. A couple remarkably like these two tried a similar robbery in Swindon back in September, and there they fired shots all over the place. The man trying to find them is Detective Inspector David Belcher. They do seem a couple of bunglers, though, it must be said.
Mr. Ross, these two men are highly dangerous, discharging a shotgun in a busy city centre. We were extremely fortunate that nobody was injured.
You must have pretty good descriptions of them. Over 100 people saw them.
Yes, we'd also like some more people to come forward as well that saw the robbers before the robbery took place in George Street.
There were a couple of police officers, of course, among those who were there. What descriptions have you got of the man?
Well, the man with the yellow jacket holding the pump-action shotgun is described as 25 years old, 5'9" tall. He's slim-build. He has tidy brown short hair, blue eyes, and he's clean-shaven.
Very distinctive eyes, too, by the looks of that video.
Yes, indeed.
What about his accomplice?
Well, he's the man inside the Securitor vehicle. He's described as about 5'6", 5'8". He's stockier than his accomplice, and he's much older, 25 to 30.
Now, their white van, in fact, the guy who tried to steal the keys from it has become something of a local celebrity, I gather. Where did the robbers get that white Ford Escort van from?
That was stolen from the Cowley area, Little Hay Road, on the 8th of November. A month before the robbery.
Right, and it's got two sets of plates there. The original ones, I gather, are the ones at the bottom, the false ones at the top.
That is correct.
Where did those false plates come from?
They were made at Partco in Windmill Road in Croydon, south-east London. And we don't know when, of course. It was sometime after, perhaps after the vehicle was stolen.
So it is quite conceivable this wasn't a local job at all. These people could have come from anywhere.
Indeed, they could. The motorways connect, obviously, Oxford to London. They could easily have come from the London area.
Now, this Black Hawk porter-power jack, and it operates by, if you pump that handle, then these jaws are supposed to prise open, and it leaks, this particular one, which is quite distinctive. Where did this one come from, do you know?
Well, that is the question which we'd very much like to answer tonight. It's new condition. It's probably been stolen from a garage or from a vehicle, or indeed it may even been purchased by the gunmen themselves.
Right. Very dangerous people, as you say. There's a reward, I gather.
Yes, quite a substantial reward offered by Securitor.
Well, it may well be someone in the underworld is prepared to shop these particular rather reckless people. If you can help, here's the number, 01811 8055. 01811 8055. If you saw the robbery or know anything, there's the Oxford number. Call the incident room direct, 0865, the code for Oxford, 249 881. That's 0865 249 881.
Well, now, a distinctive car could be the key to solving our next case, which is an armed robbery on a van making a delivery to a sub-post office on a housing estate in Hartlepool. In the course of the raid, the gang used no less than 4 different cars. The most distinctive was a red BMW. There are only 6 like it in the whole of the northeast of England. And in the last few weeks before the robbery, several witnesses remember seeing it near the housing estate where the raid took place. For security reasons, we won't be showing any details of the post office van or the robbery itself. Our reconstruction takes place in Hartlepool in Cleveland. This is the central estate on the north side of the town, just a month before the robbery. A local resident, Mrs. Davis, was trying to call her GP.
it working, missus?
Yes, my number's engaged, you can have it.
Oh, champion.
Mrs. Davis says she remembers the BMW because it wasn't the sort of car she'd seen on the estate before.
Aye. We were in a bit late this morning. I had a bit of an accident. I got a smack in the back bumper. I'll be all right.
But she couldn't see any damage to the back of the car. Three weeks later, on another Friday morning, about a mile from the central estate, this woman saw what police now think was a dummy run of the getaway. She remembers the men were smartly dressed and carried walkie-talkies. And the BMW was seen again, this time on the morning of the robbery. At 8:30, near the phone box on the edge of the estate, a man in a trilby hat and camel coat was seen waiting beside it. The robbers must have had specialist knowledge, because in this junction box there are several telephone cables, but they knew exactly which one was connected to the central estate. The phones were still working 10 minutes before the robbery, as in a nearby factory, this clerk was ringing the post office to order some stamps.
10 at 50 and 15 at £1. Bye.
Seconds later, all lines to the estate were dead. The regular delivery van was now just entering the estate on its way to the sub-post office. Next door to the post office, the milkman was delivering to the grocery shop as usual.
Good eat, love. Yeah. The usual. Yeah, you got it.
The first signs of the impending robbery were probably seen by Jane Robotham, out shopping with her children.
5 minutes. When she's gone, we'll go for it.
She was frightened and walked by. As the van driver went to inform the post office that the delivery had arrived, this Bedford Astra reversed up behind the van.
Right, get him down! Get down, you bastard! Get down, son, or I'll wrap this round your neck! Get down! Come on! Stay down, you bastard! Come on!
Although 5 men were seen getting into the BMW, it must have stopped shortly afterwards for some of the gang to get out. By the time it arrived here, about a mile away, only 2 men were seen leaving it and getting into this silver Granada. Well, from the map you can see that from Warren Court, the Granada travelled about a quarter of a mile to Tenby Walk, where it was found abandoned. Then from Tenby Walk it's about 100 yards to here, Gower Walk, where we know that about 8:30 on the morning of the robbery, a silver Nissan Bluebird was seen pulling into this parking bay here. Police now believe that Nissan was planted here as a getaway car, and we know that the Granada was stolen from Northumbria, but where the Bluebird came from or where it went to remains quite a mystery so far. Maybe we'll find out in the course of this programme. And the gang got away with several £1000s worth of cash and stamps and car tax discs. Mr Newsom is in charge of the case. The most noticeable, of course, of those cars, as I said, was the red BMW Alpina, which was stolen 6 months before the raid. Where do you think it was during those 6 months?
Well, normally a gang would store a car before use in a robbery, but that car had done 2,000 miles and must have been seen in the area, possibly the Tyneside area, and certainly at petrol filling stations.
So people must come forward if they saw a car they
yes,
think
and
was that.
particularly Alpina.
And the silver Granada was also stolen from Northumberland, not so noticeable as a car, but some quite interesting and distinctive things stolen from it.
Yes, a very valuable set of Ben Hogan Apex golf clubs had been in the car when it was stolen, and those were missing when the car was recovered.
Right. Those we're showing actually aren't the original ones. We do have just one that was left behind with a tan handle. These all look the same.
Yes, the owner had kept this in his possession, and in fact these were specially made for a very tall man. They've been extended by 2 inches, and the handle is leather compared to the normal handle, which is a different colour.
So these would be quite useless then to a normal-sized golfer.
That's right, they are quite distinctive.
So maybe somebody in all innocence has come by these golf clubs, and that could be a vital lead to the gang.
It could.
The other thing that was left in the car was the driving licence. You brought in a replica there.
Yes, the owner of the Granada was a Mr Alistair Smith of Morpeth. Now, that driving licence may have been used to hire vehicles, and I'm particularly interested in any that have been hired in the Tyneside area, possibly by the gang, under that name.
Now, we have 2 video clips people might recognise, we hope. One of a man who was seen parking the Nissan Bluebird, where we saw just now, in Gower Walk.
Yes, he's described by a witness as being about 35 years of age, thin, short, curly, dark hair, and he's supposed to look a little bit like Robert Powell, the actor.
And the second one was a man who was seen sitting in the passenger seat of the red Astra van at about the time the telephone cables were being cut.
That's right, slightly younger, 30 to 35 years of age. You can see he's got short dark hair with a fringe which actually comes over his forehead, and he was described by the witness as being good looking.
Where do you think the gang is from?
I do believe the gang's from Tyneside.
Right, and the date we're talking about is Friday the 12th of February and the weeks leading up to that. If you recognise any of those cars we showed you, or if you can tell us anything you think might help the police to find these men, please do ring us here in the studio. The number is 01 811 8055, or dial Cleveland Police Direct, and that number is 0642 248 184. That's 0642, the code for Middlesbrough, 248 184.
Now, it's not often that victims of crime, assuming the crime is not murder, feel that they're up to taking part in Crimewatch reconstructions. In this case, though, it was the victim's own suggestion. Think back, if you will, to Saturday the 26th of March. It was the night that the clocks went forward. The place is Conholt Park, a private country house on the Wiltshire-Hampshire border, not far from Andover. Conholt Park is a 2,000-acre farm estate. It's been owned and managed for almost half a century by 89-year-old Henrietta Gaskell, helped by her secretary and companion for the last 10 years, 67-year-old Marjorie Mills.
Some help with the harvest this time.
The 2 of them run the place with great precision, supervising a substantial farm staff. Their daily schedule always finishes with a strict security routine.
First of all, we lock the front door of the house, and then when coming inside, we lock the inner doors, our inner defence, very thoroughly. Take out the keys.
So we went upstairs to our rooms, and I went to bed. Well, good night, Margaret.
Good night, Miss Gaskell. There, off to bed. Sleep well. I read until quite late that night, until 20 past 11, old time. Then I put my clock forward and went to sleep. In the early hours of the morning, I woke up feeling that I'd heard a noise from the hall downstairs.
Oh, no.
I found the house was blacked out. Got up to investigate. Went and leant over the banisters and could see lights moving about down below.
Oh.
I swept down the stairs, shining my torch on the raiders. They turned to face me as they went through the middle door, and I caught sight of the face of one of them very, very clearly. I rushed to the middle door and bolted it. Came back to find out about the telephone and the lights. The trip switch wouldn't work. The telephone was done in. I went upstairs to wake Miss Gaskell.
Miss Gaskell, wake up. We've got intruders. Heavens. Where's my dressing gown? So I then came downstairs.
I think back on, Miss Gaskell.
Good. I heard Miss Mills fall. Oh, don't hurt her, please.
I won't struggle, but take care of Miss Gaskell. She's got a weak heart.
Now do as you're told and you won't get hurt.
I tried to feel whether there was a button or anything on his coat I could tear off. But I once read something that somebody had been convicted because they'd lost a button off a coat.
I was dragged across the floor to the staircase and handcuffed to Miss Gaskell.
Come on.
She was then given a chair, and there we were, pinioned together through the staircase. Well, I was very angry at first, but calmed down. I hope you appreciate the fact that we're not having hysterics.
Yeah, yeah. Now, do you want a cushion down there?
No, thank you.
Oh, suit yourself.
Bruno pottered downstairs about this time. I grabbed his collar and made him sit at our feet, which was very comforting, of course, because he growled if the men came too near.
Would you like a drink? A whiskey?
No, thank you. I don't care for whiskey. But I wouldn't mind a gin and tonic.
Gin. How about you?
I don't drink. May I have a glass of water?
Coming up?
Well, I thought if we were going to be there all night, it would be a good thing to have a glass of plain water. She then gave me the rest of the tonic water.
There you go.
Thank you.
Here's yours.
Thank you.
Right, come on, ladies. Tell us where the key to the safe is.
I don't know where it is.
If you don't tell us, we'll kill the dog.
And then us?
Come on, where is it? Come on.
All right. I think it's in my handbag upstairs. When the men went down to the safe, I thought, well, now they'll clean the whole thing out. And then I remembered my watch and rings and thought, I'm not going to let them have those. So I took them off and pushed them under the carpet.
For the next hour, we saw the men coming and going, upstairs and downstairs, looking for things to take.
What time does the milk come?
It doesn't come. No one comes on Sunday. If you leave us tied up here, we shall not be found till Monday morning. They left, we think, about 5:30. And then, after a short time, we realised that the house was empty again.
By sheer good fortune, there was a file in a toolbox right under the stairs, though it was useless on the handcuffs.
But then we decided to file through the banister stanchion. And this we did, with some success eventually. But it took a very long time. We're through. We're free.
Good, not from each other.
It had taken them 4 hours. Their next problem was to attract attention.
No, it's dead.
By this time, it was 10:30 on Sunday morning.
And together, we walked through the kitchen onto the steps of the garden and rang the bell loudly to call attention.
Eventually, the two of them were discovered by the game. This is an artist's impression of one of the intruders. Remember, they had Irish accents, so of course they might have been putting them on. Miss Gaskell was terribly underinsured, like so many of us turn out to be when these robberies happen. In fact, the last valuation she had done was in the early 1960s. Even then, the property that's been stolen was worth over £30,000. It must be worth a fortune now. Have you seen any of her possessions? The thieves took a whole canteen of 18th century silver cutlery, 154 pieces in all. They were all like this, and they carried the family crest, which is an oak tree. They also had Carpe Diem written on some of them, and they tended to be wrapped in napkins with this monogram on it, EAW. You'll see that oak tree rather better, that crest, in a mahogany hall chair, very similar to this one. This entire Dresden dinner service was among many items that the thieves carefully packed into a Fortnum & Mason's hamper, wrapping each piece again in a monogram napkin. This clock is described as an inlaid rosewood mantel clock. These gilded Meissen vases also went. There's a reward up to £10,000 for information leading to the recovery of the property. Do call us, please, if you can help. The number here, 01811 8055. And the Wiltshire Police are on devices 77311. That's 0380 77311. Our next case is dramatic and at the same time absurd. It involves men in silly disguises and a family who've been so terrorised that they're now frightened to be in their own home. As you'll have gathered from watching Crimewatch, attacks on security vans have been increasing. There have been several hundred attempted robberies so far this year. Armed daylight robbery is bad enough, but now one gang has gone even further. What you're about to see is, of course, a faithful reenactment, but we've changed the identities of the victims so that they won't become even more frightened. It's 9 o'clock at night on Tuesday, the 1st of March, at the home of a security guard in Brockley, which is in southeast London.
And overtired, overwhelmed, and over here, Eddie and his agent hit town. Ireland's Prime Minister says London's explanation of the mechanism...
Do you want a biscuit, love?
No,
thanks, love. All right, love, I'll get it.
Who's there?
It's the police. We come about Mr. Stanley Wilson's car.
Please come about your car.
What? Right, get in the living room. Get in there! Get in there and shut up! What's it? Get over there! Now sit down and shut up!
We haven't got anything here.
We don't want anything of yours. Now, we've been watching you for some time. We know you work for Security Express, and tomorrow you're going to do a job for us. The boss is coming here at 4 o'clock in the morning, and he's going to take your wife for a little ride in the countryside.
Oh, no!
Now just keep quiet. And then later on, we're going to take you to your depot, and you're going to persuade your two mates to drive the van with the money to us.
Oh, but suppose I can't.
Oh, no. No.
They won't do it.
You'll persuade them, else you won't see her again.
You can't do anything to her.
Look, just be quiet. Just sit here and relax, and we'll wait till 4 o'clock in the morning.
It's all right, love. It's all right.
Must be the boss.
You will do what they say, won't you, love?
Yeah, don't worry, love. Be all right.
OK, there's been no problem, have they?
No problem, Geoff.
We're professionals, right? I'm going to take your wife out for a drive in the country, right? I don't want no problems, and you'll get her back. I don't want no heroics. I don't want no police informed or whatever. Remember, I've got your wife. You got that? Yeah. I don't want any problems. Just put this on.
Do I have to?
Just for a little while.
It's 7 o'clock. Stan was taken to his own car, which they'd brought out from his garage. he was driven 5 miles to the Security Express depot where he worked. This is Neat Street in Burgess Park. It's a busy short cut from the Elephant and Castle to Peckham. They waited here for 15 minutes, the gunmen still wearing their joke outfits. The guard was late for work when they reached Balfour Street near Security Express.
Right, you can go now. You know what to do. If anything goes wrong, I'll shoot you.
The guard was instructed to wait outside the depot. The robbers plainly didn't want to lose sight of him for longer than was necessary.
Come on, hurry up, you're late, get in the back quick!
When he told his crew what had happened, they agreed to drive straight to the rendezvous. About a mile away is Lambeth Hospital Nurses' Home, where the guard's car was later found abandoned. It's believed the robbers switched here to a motorbike. The Union Jack pub is on a corner of Union Street in Southwark. The guards had been ordered to wait here for further instructions.
Have you seen anything? Nothing. See one.
As he passed the maroon Sierra, he seemed to signal to the driver. The motorcyclists led the van about 4 miles down the Old Kent Road. Down towards the back of Millwall football ground is the car park of a block of flats. The Bedford was seen waiting here from about 20 to 9 that morning.
Where the hell are they? Can you see them coming yet?
Pat heard passers-by.
Can you see Jennifer? Tell her to hurry up. All right.
Shortly after 9:15, the security van arrived at Ilderton Road and headed towards the deserted site behind the football ground. The white Bedford van followed.
Come on, get out of the van! Get on there! Move it! Move it! All right, you two! Get on this one! Get on it! Move it! Come on! Move it!
While the money was being taken, a lookout found 2 gardeners working nearby.
Get out! Run! Get out! Get out! Get out! Get your face down, you'll be all right, okay? Got everything!
It's empty, that's a lot.
Get out! Get out!
Where's my wife? Tell me my wife! Where's my wife? See my wife? Oh.
Okay, I'll take that off now. Come on.
You two stay down!
The gang got away with £750,000. Let's remind ourselves that in a similar, though unconnected crime today, a police officer was shot dead. Sergeant Stratford, actually, in this case, we've got a very good description of one of the bandits there.
Yes, we have. He's aged 30 to 35, height 5'8", stocky build, brown eyes, with dark brown, almost black hair, and he was wearing a black, well-trimmed beard.
Now, that precise definition comes from a marvellous witness, someone who thought that these people looked suspicious and bothered to take down lots of details, including, I gather, details about the white Bedford van.
That is correct. He also took down the number of the white Bedford van. It's UHJ934W.
OK, if you know where that van is or where it's been, please call us. What about the motorbike which led the van?
The motorbike we have recovered, that is RGX629X. That was purchased on Monday, the 29th of February, from a shop in Streatham. That was found in Clifton Way, Peckham, sometime after the robbery.
You want to know who dumped it there, presumably? It's a very odd one. Look, that suspension looks rather odd. It's black and yellow, which must be rather unusual.
That is, and it's a Yamaha special.
How is the family?
The family are very shocked and still very frightened, as much they're not even able to go back to their own home.
Well, if you can help crack this one, please do. It has, incidentally, one of the biggest rewards ever offered in this country, £75,000. Here's the number to call, 018118055. If that's busy, you can call the flying squad direct on 012302061. That's 012302061. We start with a small-time burglary in the west of Wales, a burglary that very nearly resulted in someone being killed. In the reconstruction you're about to see, several of the witnesses have relived their experiences in the hope that you'll remember some of the incidents that led up to the crime. The events took place a month ago. In fact, our film begins on the evening after last month's Crimewatch. It's Friday, April the 15th, just outside Carmarthen in Dyfed. This is Great Mill's do-it-yourself store on the Pensarn Industrial Estate. At about 6:30, staff remember seeing two men who'd come to buy some tools. Staff announcement after 20 minutes and
Sean, can you find the price of that, please?
£2.99. Well, that's expensive. Should be about £1.75.
4088, please. Okay.
It's now about 45 minutes later, 30 miles down the A40 in Haverfordwest. The men bought a silver and blue insulated carrier bag.
£1.99, please. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Police in Haverfordwest need to hear from anyone who saw those men that night. It's now 3 a.m. In Prospect Place, just off the main A40, a driver saw a reddish car that had been parked awkwardly. A few hundred yards away at Haverfordwest Football Club, the men were trying to disable the alarms. Having prepared the football club for a break-in, the men then moved up the hill to the rugby club, where again they tampered with the alarms. They left a number of footprints. But did you spot the men on the roadside that night? As they walked back, they threw away some tools. By about 20 to 4, they were back at the football club. Unknown to the men, they triggered an alarm.
Police?
This is an automatic alarm. Suspects at the Haverfordwest County AFC Social Club.
Control 869 0117. 1011 alarm at Haverfordwest Football Club.
There were 3 officers, a woman and 2 men.
There's still someone in there. You stay around the front. I'll go round the back.
At this point, an audible alarm went off. The policewoman then gave chase on foot while the car went round the back.
What happened, Nate? Go on, Nate. Come on, hold it, hold it. Hold it.
Alison! Nate has been hit!
Feel my head.
Quick, get into the car.
Come on, Nate.
About the same time, a local market trader on her way to work saw a man running across the main road. Just after she turned onto the main A40, a red car pulled out past her at speed. The next day, police began to piece together the events of that night. At Withybush General Hospital, it became clear that PC Nigel John had serious head injuries. His skull had been fractured, and as a result, he'd suffered convulsions. Doctors say he was lucky to survive and are uncertain about the degree of his recovery. So, what began as a burglary is now being treated as attempted murder. The man who's leading the hunt for PC John's attackers is Detective Chief Inspector Chris James. How is Police Constable John?
Well, he's now been discharged from hospital and he's progressing slowly but steadily. He did receive a bang, a clout on the head with this instrument, a heavy-handled screwdriver with great force.
Were these local lads?
Well, we keep a very much an open mind on this, but it would appear that they came in from outside our force area.
Now, their accents weren't very distinct, it seems, and it does seem they came in using the A40 and went out on the A40, so perhaps they're from South Wales somewhere.
That is correct, yes, indeed.
Maybe even back from Carmarthen back towards England. They bought those tools in Carmarthen, of course. You need people, presumably, who saw them in that do-it-yourself store.
That's right. Apart from the sales assistants who actually sold the items, we've had no one come forward yet to say that they saw them in the store or in the car park. If they left in a vehicle, we've had no sightings of them, you know, leaving the area at all.
And where did they go in Haverfordwest after they'd been into the Swan service station and bought those insulated carrier bags?
Well, between 7 o'clock and 3 a.m. the following morning, on the Friday night and Saturday morning, we have no idea whatsoever. We've made numerous inquiries, and we would very much like to know in fact where they were.
Give us a description of the men as far as you've got it.
Well, the video fit, the assailant one, he's approximately 5'11", and he's thin build, and he's got short light brown hair, and it's described as wispy, and he had a light stubble when he purchased the items. The second person is 5'8", 5'9" tall. He has a plump face, and he's stockily built, and he's got dark brown short hair.
Their red car, incidentally, might have been a Datsun Violet 140J model. We're not sure on that. The number to ring if you think you can help is 01811 8055. Now, you can ask for a BBC researcher if you prefer. Alternatively, you can call the incident room at Haverfordwest. That's on 0437 3355. Haverfordwest 3355.
Well, I'd like to ask you now to remember what you were doing on the May Bank Holiday weekend. That was just the weekend before last. If you visited one of England's stately homes, Bowood House near Chippenham in Wiltshire, you might be able to help police find £150,000 worth of unique pieces of jewellery belonging to the Earl of Shelburne's historic family collection, and the thieves who took it as well that weekend. Our reconstruction begins in Wiltshire at Bowood House itself. Bowood House has been the home of the Earl of Shelburne's family since 1750. Now they open the house to visitors to keep the estate together. Bowood had been open to the public only 4 weeks when the robbery happened. It's 6:15, closing time, and most visitors had gone for the day. But upstairs in the jewellery room, the guard was surprised to find a man and a woman lingering on.
Very security conscious, eh?
They really are beautiful.
Are they real or paste?
There's a description on the other side of the cabinet, sir.
What would happen if someone was to steal them, eh? Come on, I think they want to close. Thank you.
Good night.
Night.
Good night, madam.
This is Long Ashton Golf Course, just outside Bristol. On the 20th of April, someone went into the club locker room to steal a set of car keys. These false plates were fixed onto the stolen MG Montego. They'd been bought the same day from a shop 10 miles away in Avonmouth. On the A342, the main Chippenham to Devizes road, is one of the entrances to the Bowood estate. This gate is only unlocked when the rhododendron gardens are on show in May. Just 3 days before the robbery, the gardens were being prepared for the opening that weekend. This gardener remembers a blue Montego.
Morning. Morning, sir. Is it open yet? Not till the weekend. Thank you. Hello.
This was the gate the robbers were to use for their getaway. The Montego was seen again on the morning of the robbery, Friday the 29th of April. It was the bank holiday weekend. Just up the road from the rhododendron gardens is this lane. At 10:30 that morning, a farm worker noticed 2 men standing at the boot of a blue Montego. A red BMW was parked just in front of it. 15 minutes later, another witness saw the BMW there, but now it was on its own. A woman was waiting in it. At about the same time, the Montego was again on the Bowood estate. This farm worker saw it heading for Bowood House. Meanwhile, at the main entrance, a woman seemed to be signalling, perhaps to a taxi that was seen leaving at that time. Minutes later, she was with this man at the ticket office.
2 adult, please.
540, please. 540, please.
Have you got any change? There's another 40p. That's right, I've got something.
Thank you.
The cashier remembers the woman kept her face turned away. Shortly after that, nearer the house, a steward saw them at a bench.
Good morning.
Morning.
Isn't she feeling well?
He noticed she behaved rather oddly.
She's a bit faint.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
They must have stopped only for a minute, as by 11:10 they were inside the house. Upstairs, the curator, Kate Fielden, was preparing for the day.
I thought I'd probably have time to clean a showcase which was looking a bit dusty before the first visitors arrived. And I was suddenly aware of a couple. I noticed that they went straight up the stairs, which is a bit surprising because people normally walk around the first floor first.
One floor up and behind the heavy door, the thieves were out of earshot. Police think the tools they used must have been hidden under their coats.
I locked the showcase. I didn't dally. And I had the feeling that as I went down the stairs, they didn't follow immediately after me. It was as though they were dawdling a bit. Perhaps they were trying to avoid me.
That was a quick visit.
My wife's not feeling very well. I'm taking her home.
Oh, I'm sorry.
As they left the shop, they bumped into the same steward again.
Hello, is she all right now?
No, not quite.
You can use our restroom if you like.
No, thank you. We're
sure?
ready to go.
All right, then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
The Montego was seen flashing its lights, presumably a signal. And minutes later, the couple was seen leaving the grounds in it. Police found blood on the gate. Perhaps she had cut her hand on the showcase. They abandoned the Montego in the lay-by and must have left in the red BMW. That was found a week later in this car park in Melksham, 8 miles away. So, Mr. Legg, what exactly did they steal?
Well, these are well-documented, unique items that have been stolen from Bowood House. One is Admiral Lord Keith's chelling, which is a diamond ornament in the form of a brooch. And the second one is a Sultan's medal from 1801, a gold star with a moon design in the middle.
And a watch.
And this is the watch, yes. All these 3 items are well-documented, they're unique, and
So they're going to be difficult to sell if they're unique.
They will be difficult to sell. Any person who actually is offered these items will know where they come from.
So they may be broken down, which would be sad.
Yes.
We have video fits of the couple. What descriptions do you have of them?
This is the first person who was actually seen, not on the day itself, but some days prior, acting suspiciously. She's described as 32 years, 5'9", black hair cut in the fringe, styled at the rear. She's got fresh complexion and she's a slim build, and she's said to have a refined home counties accent.
And the man?
And the man, this is the man who was again seen with her on the day. He's 50 years, 5'10", proportionate build, thick dark hair, clean shaven with sharp features, said to be tanned, wearing thin-framed horn-rimmed spectacles and a grey-green peaked cap.
And I gather you have a suspicion that the woman on the actual day of the robbery might have been in fact a man.
Yes, on the day, the female, who we think may well be a man, was spoken to by a member of the staff and replied in a gruff voice, and we've good reason to believe that could well be a man.
Right. Now, they fitted false number plates to the red BMW. We've brought replicas of them in here.
Yes, these are false plates. In fact, this number has not been issued, and we would like any person who recognised having made up number plates with this number to contact us.
And also anybody who remembers selling these tools, which they managed to smuggle in under their coats, quite ambitious in itself. Yes. Does anybody recognise those tools?
All these tools were left at the scene. They're new tools, and we'd like to know from any person who's actually sold these tools to anybody.
Right, thank you very much. And if you can help in any of those ways, or if you've seen any of the jewellery, ring us here on the usual number 01811 8055, or you can call the Devices Incident Room direct on 0380 77311. That's 0380, the code for Devices, 77311. Our next reconstruction is of break-ins at two homes in the Midlands. They were just 15 miles apart and they happened within hours of each other. The first one was at the house of a coal merchant in Burton-on-Trent. The other at a family farm at Blythe Bridge, just outside Stoke-on-Trent. Police are not certain that the same gang were responsible, but the two cases do have strong similarities, and on both occasions the intruders were interrupted. Our report begins on Friday, May the 13th, at Blythe Bridge, on the outskirts of Stoke. The village of Blythe Bridge is noted for the Foxfield Light Railway, with its lovingly restored steam engines and rolling stock. Immediately next to the railway is a 20-acre small holding called Heath House Farm. It's owned by Gordon Plant, who breaks and trains pedigree horses. He's helped by his son Rod, an expert horseman and show jumper. For both father and son, Friday, May the 13th started normally. At about 7:30, Rod checked his horses and then left for Stoke Market, where he runs a stall selling cheese. Soon after that, Gordon locked up the house, leaving his Jack Russell puppy, Rambo, and Alsatian Fritz in charge.
Blood.
He then set off to join Rod at the cheese stall, confident that the farm was being well looked after. About an hour later, and 15 miles away in Burton-on-Trent, coal merchant Stanley Inslee was also following his normal morning routine and setting off to start his rounds. This would have been around 9 o'clock. Later that day, probably around 2:30, someone was outside the house at the French windows. A garage window was forced as well. Stan Inslee's Datsun Bluebird was reversed out to the house. It seems the plan was to drive off with the safe in Stan Inslee's own car, but at 3 o'clock he returned. They didn't get the safe, but they did get more than £1,000 worth of gold jewellery. A neighbour remembers seeing 3 men walking fast down the road. At least one of them was wearing a suit. Within the hour, back at Blythe Bridge, a local resident driving near Heath House Farm had to swerve to avoid a man in a dark suit.
Right, let's go around the front.
At about 4:30, Rod Plant was on his way home with his young cousin, Simon, who was coming to help with the stock. Once again, the target seemed to be the safe.
Yeah.
As they approached the yard, Rod and Simon noticed a horse had got loose.
Where's your old man?
He's out.
When will he be back?
6, 7 o'clock. My Uncle Rod's on the back if you want him.
Right then, let's go and have a word.
Good lad, come on, let's get you back to the stable. Come on. Come on. What's going on?
Let go of that horse.
What do you mean?
I said let go of that
What's going
horse.
on?
I want you back in the van. Listen to me, or I'll blow your legs off.
What?
Go on, move! You, bring the nipper. Get in the van. Right, where are the keys to the safe?
I don't know.
I said, where are the keys to the safe?
Honestly, I don't know.
If you don't tell me, I'll have to use this.
Honestly, I don't know. As far as I know, my dad's got him.
We just have to smash it. With what? Have you got a sledgehammer?
Yes.
Where?
Just through that door. Ready?
It was a good half an hour before the men managed to break the safe. They then removed at least £50,000 worth of gold, jewellery and cash. Rod and Simon were left locked in the van.
They're a bit playful, aren't they?
Sometime around 5 o'clock, just down the road from Heath House Farm, the lady who'd earlier swerved to avoid a man in a suit saw him again.
Oh, look, there's that chap I nearly ran over earlier on.
This time she saw he was with 2 other men and carrying a case. As she watched, they got into an orange-coloured car, which police believe may have been a larder. Well, it was over an hour and a half before Rod and Simon were released by Gordon Plant when he returned home. The shotgun, brandished by the man in the suit, was loaded, so we have to assume he was prepared to use it. The suit he was wearing was blue with a red pinstripe, and his tie had a blue, red and yellow stripe. At the farmhouse, he was seen wearing a Trilby hat. He's described as about 30, white but with a darkish complexion, medium build and about 5 foot 8 inches tall. The second man was wearing a brown knitted hat and an orange check lumber jacket. He's believed to be about 25, a pale complexion with acne spots. He's about 6 feet tall. Now, among the pieces of jewellery taken was this old silver sovereign case. It's one like it anyway. On the one that was stolen, where there was the words inscribed were "Birds of Stoke." And also a man's gold ring, like this one, with 2 buckles on it. This one's very much like the one that was stolen. If you recognise either of these, there's a £5,000 reward for information leading to the recovery of the stolen property and the conviction of the robbers. The victims, incidentally, in our film were played by the actual people. Detective Chief Inspector Tony Brindley is leading the investigation, and he and his team are behind me now waiting for your calls, so do please ring if you can help. The number, once again, is 01811 8055, or you can call the Cheadle Police Station in Staffordshire on 0538 755 867. That's 0538, the code for Cheadle, 755 867. Well, our next reconstructed case is an armed robbery 2 months ago at a frozen food supermarket in Liverpool. It was such an ordeal for the manager there that he's now given up that job altogether and moved out of the Merseyside area. The store has of course now changed its security arrangements and our reconstruction begins in Liverpool. This is the Iceland frozen food supermarket in Walton Vale. On the evening of Friday the 8th of July, the store was closed. But in the stockroom, 2 assistants were working late, packing away a delivery with the store's manager, Miles Simpson.
Have you done that last lot of cans then, Tony?
Yeah, it's the last one.
Good, well, I think that's enough for today. We'll finish off on Monday. Go and get your stuff, and I'll go and set the alarm.
Miles had been made manager of this branch just last year, and he was commuting to work from Wigan, 20 miles away. It was 9:20 when he finally locked up for the night.
Well, thanks very much, lads. Do you want to lift home?
No, we'll wait for the bus, thanks.
Bye then, lads.
Okay, good night.
Miles always parked his Renault in the street opposite the supermarket. But as the 2 boys waited for their bus that evening, they saw a blue Ford Granada pull out from round a corner and follow Miles's car.
Look, John, that car there. Looks like it's following Mr. Simpson. Try and get his number, please.
The boys saw part of the registration number, including C and 91. But Miles, driving home that night, didn't notice anything unusual.
It's 9:30, Eleanor Aldroyd reporting. Operations to put out the fire on the Piper Alpha oil...
The next morning in Liverpool, these 2 men were the first customers in the Soldier of Fortune military shop in Victoria Street.
Got a pair of handcuffs? Do you want the £11.99 or the £5.99 ones? The £11.99 ones.
He was suspicious as they paid with a £50 note.
Haven't you seen one of those before?
Late that same night, Miles was relaxing at home, tired after a busy Saturday at the supermarket.
Wake up. You've seen one of these before, haven't you? In Dirty Harry, the movie.
Oh, no, I haven't.
Do exactly what you're told and you won't get hurt.
What the hell's going on?
We're going to take you with us. We want the money from the store.
Where are the keys?
What keys?
The store keys.
Downstairs.
Where?
On the coffee table.
Before they left the house, Miles was forced to explain how the supermarket alarm system worked. Outside, a third man was waiting in the car, which Miles thinks may have been a Volkswagen Golf GTI. They drove the 20 miles to the supermarket in Walton, and during the journey, Miles remembers one of the robbers mentioned the name Joe. It would have been about 2 o'clock when the robbers arrived here at the Church of the Blessed Sacrament, which is next door to the supermarket. Miles was blindfolded and taken into the churchyard, where one of the robbers guarded him. The other went to the supermarket to turn off the alarm.
It's off, but I'll need him to open the safe.
Yeah, okay.
When we get to the street, I'm going to be behind you because I have to take my ski mask off. Just keep your eyes straight forward if you see anyone act dead cool like we're 2 mates coming out of a club, all right?
Yeah.
Right. Come on.
At about this time on a Saturday night, the nightclubs are closing, so there were still some people around in the high street. Miles is 6'8", the robber only 5'6". Maybe you remember seeing them. Miles himself remembers one man passing them, and police are still anxious to trace him.
Hold it there. Right. Come on, will you? There, so. Right, give us your hands. Right, over there. Down there, sit there, and not a word out to you.
We're going to wait for the car. Don't move from here until the police turn up, or we'll kill you.
They got away with about £8,000. Well, Detective Superintendent Tony Bailey is in charge of the case. Do you have any descriptions of the men now?
The descriptions of the two men are about 5'6", 5'7". They're both white males, 30 to 35 years of age, and described as fat and stocky build.
Right. The robber and the manager must have looked very odd together then, that night.
Yes, when they were walking from the presbytery to the shop, prior to the offence being committed, the manager's 6'8" tall and very slim. The robber is 5'6" and very fat. And at one stage, he had his arm round him. And we do know that one person was passing, and we would like that person to come forward, or any other person who has seen this odd couple walking in Walton Vale at that time of the night.
Right. Now, there's a sequel to the story. We're now looking at Livingston Drive in the Sefton Park area of Liverpool. 10 days after the robbery, a man discovered that the lock on his garage had been changed. When he finally broke the lock, he found a black Golf GTI with these number plates, and you and your colleagues believe it was the car used for the robbery. The GTI was the 16 valve, which have only been made for the past 18 months, but the plates were A-reg, so that doesn't tally, does it?
They don't know. The plates A-registered denote that the car's 4 years old at least, and the 16 valve GTI, as you quite rightly say, was only made 18 months ago, so it would prove that there were false plates on this car. And if anyone has seen this car, or seen the car in Livingston Drive in these garages being put in there or driven around in that area, would the police contact us?
Right. And what about the other car, the blue Ford Granada seen following the manager the day before the robbery?
Yes, this had a logo on the back which just had Granada. Now, the only car that Fords make with Granada on the back is the Scorpio, which is the top of the range. So it could either be a Scorpio or it could be another Granada with the other part of the logo, such as the gear or the 2.4, 2.I missing.
Right, and remember the number plate was C something 91 something.
Yes, that's correct.
Right, Mr. Bailey, thank you very much. There's a reward of £10,000 if you have any information which you think might help police and lead these police to these men. You can ring us here in the studio on the usual number. It's 01811 8055, or ring Merseyside Police direct on 051 709 6010. That's 051 for Liverpool, 709 6010.
Crime against the elderly is very rare. As you get older, you're less and less likely to be the victim of a crime. That's the opposite to what many older people fear, of course. Nonetheless, senior citizens need to be aware that some people will try to take advantage of them, and the rest of the community needs to be aware too. If you're a postman, a milkman, or perhaps a neighbour to someone who you think might be vulnerable, you'll see from our next film how we can all prevent these crimes by simply being alert. Helen Phillips takes up the story of one con man and one form of con that's been spreading across the country for 25 years.
The winter of 1963 saw the worst storms in living memory. Many homes were wrecked.
But as a result, there weren't enough workmen to repair the damage. A new type of criminal appeared on the streets. The bogus property repairmen, or prop men as they were called. They actually started their tricks here in Leeds, and it gradually became known as the Leeds crime.
Today the problem's worse than ever, and it's still centred around Leeds.
One conman in particular has been active in 8 different force areas. And last month, a conference was organised here in Leeds specifically to discuss his crimes.
The man's believed to have committed up to 80 offences over a wide area. In the last year, he's stolen more than £50,000. Police have produced this photo fit of him. He's in his 40s and well built. Some people say he looks like Geoff Capes. The crimes he's committed are callous and calculated, designed to prey on the elderly and infirm, people least able to defend themselves or give detailed statements. Mick, how does he go about it?
He favours the old person's type of complex. And he's got a very well-rehearsed story. He's obviously looking for legitimate vans in the area. That's the type of complex there, and that's the type of van. And he always uses the same method.
Oh, wait, blasted bloody wait. I'll be down shortly. Oh, what?
Hello, is this number 42?
Yes.
You Mr Young?
Yes, I am.
I'm the heating engineer. Come to check if you need any new plugs and fittings.
Expecting this.
Right, can you come in for a minute?
You can come in.
Right, thank you. Right, now let that run for 5 minutes and turn it off when the water turns brown.
You know that, right?
Well, you'll have to run it because the boiler will blow up if you don't turn it off when the water turns
It's the
brown.
first time I've ever heard out like that.
Right, now you stay here and watch that until it turns brown,
Yeah.
and I'll just go and check if everything's all right.
He must have slipped back then and into the bedroom. That's when I think it happened. I've had to cope with it. It got me down, I tell you. It got me down. It got me very depressed. And I started to pick myself up. Well, my youngest daughter, she got me pick myself up when she comes. You don't get like that, Dad.
The man starts early and maced overnight in guest houses. Here's an example of a typical day.
Hello.
Hello.
He committed his first offence in Normanton and then moved on to Sandal near Wakefield.
Hello, I'm from the electricity board. I've come to check your immersion heater.
Oh, come on in.
By mid-morning, he was probably in Huddersfield, where he struck twice.
Hello, love.
Hello.
I'm from the water board. We're working in the area. Did you get the letter?
No.
He stole cash and gold rings and then went on to Sowerby Bridge. But in Halifax, something went wrong.
All right, you sit down there, love. That's it. Okay.
Who are you?
Oh, hello. I've been next door fixing a new switch, and I just popped in to check if it's causing any interference.
What tale are you telling me?
Well, it's all right. You see me identification. Haven't you, love? I'll be off to check next door, then. Bye.
The lady's son got a good look at his face. He committed 8 crimes that day, covering the breadth of Yorkshire. He may have an accomplice who's between 30 and 40 years old, over 6 foot and well built. In Derbyshire, the conman's been seen getting out of a dark-coloured car. Inside was a woman described as plump with fair hair. But the witness in Halifax was able to give the police a very good description of the man. For the first time on Crimewatch, we're going to try and develop it using a new Home Office system called eFit. It supersedes a photo fit and creates a computerised image very similar to our video fits. The system also allows for any alterations which the witness may want to make by actually changing the features on the screen. Michael, is that a good likeness?
Well, the beard needs filling in on both cheeks. That left eyebrow, could that be brought round slightly? Well, I'd like to see it filled in up here and across there.
This provides us now with a very clear image of the man we're looking for. Have a good look at him again. If you recognise him, or if you have any information about this or similar cases, call us now on 01 811 8055. Or you can ring the incident room direct on Leeds 414141. That's 0532, the code for Leeds, 414141.
Our first case is one that's already made the headlines, and not surprisingly. It brought a town centre to a standstill, involved a kidnapping and a siege and the theft of over £500,000. The family was terrorised, though as you'll see they showed remarkable courage. 7 weeks ago today, on Thursday the 15th of September, police were called to Fishergate in the heart of Preston when the National Westminster Bank there failed to open. They knew that the staff were in there, and when they found that they couldn't communicate with them, they brought in marksmen, they cleared the area, and for 3 hours they lay in wait. But the robbers had already fled. Our reconstruction begins the evening before the raid as the bank manager, Roger Ball, left work. He noticed that, though it was a staff car park, someone had left a red Ford Escort van beside his car.
Oh, no.
One word, I'll blow your head off.
Okay, you, Mr. Ball?
Yes, sir. Are you the senior manager of the NatWest Bank?
Yes, the top man.
Yes, I said I was. It's loaded, right?
Over to the van.
Come on. Keep still, right? Down. One word.
This pump was recovered by the police and was found to be faulty. But when the car was later found, the tyre was well inflated, so this blue Sierra must have been taken to a garage. Morecambe Illuminations, 30 miles from Preston. Despite the blindfold, Roger realised he was being driven to a public car park beside Morecambe Golf Course. It's not far from his home. The red van and another car, perhaps his own Sierra, stayed here for over half an hour. By now, his family would expect him to be home.
Haven't you had enough?
Dad's late. I'm glad we didn't have to wait for him to come home before we had our tea.
Yes, he is late.
Right, stand up. OK, over to the left. Now you're getting in the passenger seat if you're up. Come on. Come on, sit down in the front seat. Mind your head. In you go. On the legs. In you go.
Police have reason to believe that Roger was next driven here to Sandside Caravan site at Bolton Le Sands, just north of Morecambe. Were you here on Wednesday the 14th? There's an unusual old-fashioned payphone.
In.
Hello?
Mrs. Ball?
Yes?
Jean, it's me. Now, don't panic, love. Stay calm. Now, don't ring the police. Just listen to me.
What's going on?
Do exactly as I say.
Jean was told to open the door to the patio.
Yes. Vanessa, darling. It's Daddy.
Sit down! Just do as you're told and you won't get hurt, all right? I'm gonna stay nice and calm till your husband gets home. All right, come in.
Roger, Dad.
Right.
Jean, Vanessa, are you both all right?
Yes.
Stop. Sit down.
Everything OK?
Yeah.
Now, we're going to be here till about 4 o'clock this morning, so we might as well make ourselves nice and comfortable. You don't do anything stupid, and you do what you're told, everybody's going to be fine. No one will get hurt. I don't suppose the chance of a cup of tea is there, Mrs. Ball?
And now tonight's main news again.
Hurricane Gilbert, with 200-mile-an-hour winds, has hit Mexico and is heading for Texas. Leaving us well alone. That's the man.
I had a poor upbringing, but I didn't resort to crime. Well, it's absolutely true. Why should you have easy money just because you think you have the right to do that? You're underprivileged and all that. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
One of the intruders stole both Roger's and Jean's cash cards, and from bank records it's known he took them to this dispenser on the front at Morecambe. It was 10 o'clock. Might you have seen him?
Now, Rog, I'm going to tell you what we're going to do in the bank.
Roger was astonished to be told that the gang could get into the locked bank without him. But they needed his help to persuade his colleagues to open up the vault. If he didn't cooperate, his wife and daughter would be killed. What happened next, they all found terrifying.
All right.
They were driven off, locked in darkness, in Jean's silver Ford Orion and in Roger's blue Sierra. They finished up beside the bank in a deserted shop. Jean and Vanessa, blindfolded, had no idea where they were. Roger guessed roughly where he was, but he didn't know his wife and daughter were in the room below him.
You're right, Vanessa.
Roger had been instructed to go to work, to round up all his staff and tell them to cooperate.
Now, there's nothing you can do about it. No alarms, nothing. They've got Jean and Vanessa. There's a robber already in the bank, and there's one outside. But, I must ask you, please stay very, very...
Right, you! Don't move! Do exactly as you're told. Stay where you are. If I get caught, I get 20 years. But take one of you with me, I get another 5. Roger, let him in.
Okay, here we go, Rob. Everybody all right? You stay calm.
Wait, who's got the keys to the vault? Come on, the keys for the vault!
Vault, he needs vault. Vault, he wants the key to the vault.
Okay, over here, come on. Come on, hurry up! Come on, make a move! Come on, fast!
At just after 9:30, 2 workmen arrived for a routine check on the alarms.
Strange, the bank's still shut. I'll just nip out and see if there's a space.
Right, Andy.
He saw a silver Orion backing up the passageway beside the bank. When he walked past the Orion to find a parking space, he saw a man loading bags from the side door of the bank into the boot of the car.
All of you, come on, into the vault, come on. Quickly, keep moving. One at a time, come on.
Meanwhile, at the front, a crowd of customers had gathered. The bank was now 15 minutes late in opening. This is Garden Street.
All right, come on.
This woman almost certainly heard the robbers exchanging cars. The silver Orion was later found abandoned in Preston Station car park. The end of Garden Street opens out towards the station. Usually the way is blocked by bollards. Sometime earlier that morning, they'd been removed. Mr. Walms, it must be said that no gratuitous violence was used, but it was a miracle no one had a heart attack. There's so many people involved. NatWest, so insistent this isn't going to happen again. One of their staff kidnapped like this, they've offered the monumental reward, £50,000, which is a really big one by UK standards.
It's the largest reward that I'm aware of, certainly in the north of England. And in addition to that, it's 10% of the proceeds recovered will be paid to anyone with information leading to the arrest of the persons responsible. OK, now what do we know about the people? We've got a video fit of one of them. That was the chap who was seen putting money into the boot of the car. Describe him to us, can you? He is offender number 3, and as you say, he took the money out of the bank and into the boot of the Orion. He's described as tan white male, 5'9". He's got black short hair. He's wearing a moustache, and wearing smart, light brown suit.
And suspects 1 and 2, they were fairly similar. They were fairly small, weren't they? 5'7" or so.
Yes, they're thought to be about 25 years of age, less than 5'7".
OK, one of them had a speech defect. I don't know if you noticed, he said that White, who's got the keys to the fault, as though he can't say R in right and he can't say V in vault.
That's right. It's an impediment which is thought to affect the V's and the R's, but they do have what is described as soft Merseyside accents.
Now, this foot pump is important. You need to find anyone at all who's ever bought a foot pump like this from Halfords that hasn't worked. They've taken it back.
These were made by Cameron Price in Birmingham from November 1987. It's sold only through the Halford retailer shops. It's known to be defective. It has been returned by a legitimate purchaser and then subsequently stolen.
So if you were a legitimate purchaser of a Halford foot pump that didn't work after that period in 87, end of 87, and took it back to a Halford shop, please give us a call. The red Ford Escort van, we've got a picture of it here. It's remarkably clean. It looks as though it had been washed prior to the robbery or kept in a garage. Now, that's distinctive. Tell us why people might remember having seen that.
It's red in colour. It's got a B registration on a 5-year-old vehicle. It's got a black roof rack, as you can see, and a hole has been punched into the side, which, when we found it, was covered by adhesive tape.
Right, that little hole, that spy hole that they cut in, is perhaps something that somebody might have noticed in it. There's also a white van. Now, tell us the significance of that.
Yes, this white van with shower power on the side was seen about 25 minutes past 6 on the morning of the robbery itself, in the Asda car park, which is at the bottom of Garden Street, possibly only about 10 yards away from where the bollards were removed from.
Right, it's called a Luton-type van. We're not interested in people telling us about shower power. We know that's of no relationship to the vehicle.
Yes.
There was a lot of heavy money stolen. 2.5 hundredweight was taken in coins, like 2.5 sacks of cement.
Right. £11,000 in pound and 50p pieces amounts to 2.5 hundredweight, and that is a lot of money, a lot of weight.
Right. Well, if you can help recover any of the money, there's a big reward. If you can help convict any of the men, there's a huge reward. If you've any information, here's the number to ring, 01811 8055. Or you can call Preston Police Direct on 0772 203 203. That's 0772, that's the code for Preston, 203 203. This is top quality leather. In fact, it feels like silk. It's made from skins like these, and the markings that you'll find on skins like these show that they come from a place called Gomshall Tanneries. Over the past 2 years, the firm has been subjected to a series of burglaries and to a robbery in which staff were threatened with a shotgun. We've reconstructed the latest of these raids. It took place about a month ago, and maybe you can help. Incidentally, the company have asked us to point out that they've now changed their security procedures. The film begins at Newlands Corner, which is just off the A25 in Surrey. Walkers and picnickers are attracted to the rolling countryside that surrounds the Guildford to Dorking Road. Gomshall is on the main road. It's mentioned in the Doomsday Book. It's a picture postcard village where strangers are easily noticed. There's been a tannery here for over 500 years. During the Victorian period, Gomshall Tannery thrived, and gradually the company developed a worldwide reputation for high-quality sheepskin leather. But now the company has been taken over, and production has been transferred to other parts of the country. It's Friday the 2nd of September. On her way to work, this woman noticed a white van parked in Coal Kitchen Lane opposite the tannery gates. At lunchtime, 2 men entered the post office down the road and bought some sandwiches.
Hello.
You won't get a sunburn today, will you?
You won't get a suntan all week here.
The first witness was leaving the tannery late that afternoon when she noticed the men walking along the main road. Who were they, and where had they been during the day? At about 6:30, the 2 were spotted wandering back towards the tannery gates. Another villager noticed one of them stop and walk a few paces back. It was a few minutes later that 2 men broke into the tannery. So as not to be discovered, they put a brand new crown padlock on the gates. The box van was spotted being driven in. It may have had a red logo on the front above the cab. They took only the best quality leather. One box was later found like this. The skins they stole had these distinctive Gomshall stamps. The A shows their top quality. The thieves also stole 2 boxes of rare New Zealand leathers. They probably left at about 8:30. Just before the security guards made their regular check. They made off with 56 boxes worth £82,000. There's a strong possibility that the Gomshall break-in may be linked to 3 earlier raids in southeast London. They all took place at this warehouse in Rotherhithe. It was also owned by Gomshall Tanneries. In 1986, 2 men tricked their way in.
Can I help you? Sorry to bother you, Chief. Yeah, we're from the security company. Just come to do a routine check. Is that all right?
All right. Just through there.
Terrific. Won't keep you long. Thanks a lot.
They tampered with the alarm system and later returned, broke in and escaped with top-quality leather. Then, in July 1987, again, only best quality leather was stolen. And in December 1987, as a legitimate customer came to the door...
Hello. How are you? I'm fine.
Get back! Get in the corner! And you! Stay over there!
Again, they went straight for top-quality hides. In total, Gomshall Tanneries have lost well over £250,000 worth of stock. We can presume that these are professionals. They probably come from London. They presumably have a receiver already set up because there's a huge quantity of leather that they've taken. Tell us what we know about the men.
Yes, we have a description, which we've got a video fit here, of one of the men. He's 6 foot, late 20s. His hair is dark brown and it's greying at the front. Now the witness states that is more natural than streaked by a hairdresser. And the second male is also late 20s, but of a more muscular build with a moustache.
OK, both wore tracksuit trousers and trainers in the Gomshall raid, though they probably discarded those. Where did the van come from? What do we know about it?
We know that it is a Luton-bodied van, and we know that there is a red logo on the front over the cab, and also a red logo on the back door there. So obviously we'd like to know who may have hired that van, or if anyone lent it to anybody over that particular weekend.
Leather experts will recognise this as very high quality leather. These markings on here, of course, again they will have seen, although it's quite easy to rub this off to get rid of it, but obviously any leather merchants who've got high quality leather like this might like to call us because there's a substantial reward.
Yes, there is a reward of 10% for any information in this matter.
And some of these skins are very distinctive. Very quickly, just explain what this is, for example.
This is called contour napper, and it is solely manufactured by the Gomshall Tannery.
And it's very
distinctive.
OK, well, here's the number if you can help, 01811 8055, 01811 8055, or you can call Guildford Police, 0483 311 11. That's 0483, the code for Guildford, 31111. Over the past 10 years, banks have tightened up their security measures against armed robberies. As a result, though, raiders have turned to hold-ups in the street, going for the vulnerable moments when cash has to be taken into or out of buildings. These attacks have in part transferred the risk from bank staff to security guards, but also to passers-by. Our next appeal is about one such raid which took place in Grays in Essex, where dozens of people were in the line of fire. The only actors in the film that follows are those who play the robbers. The witnesses all reenact the parts they played themselves. The reconstruction begins a week before the raid in a quiet road in Grays called Parkside.
I looked out of the window and saw a young man get out of the car. I just thought, I wonder what he's doing. And so I went to the door, opened the door and went out as he was walking down the road. He turned round and looked at me, and I looked back at him and then came in. I was going to shout, "What are you doing parking there?" But I thought, oh, mustn't be that nosy. In this road, it's very narrow and cars just don't park outside my house unless they're visiting.
1 week later, on the eve of the robbery, 3 vehicles were stolen in different parts of London. This 750cc Honda was taken from Lee Street, Hackney. This 750cc Suzuki was outside a motor parts shop in Godstone Road, Kenley, near Croydon. And this metallic grey Sierra was stolen from Perry Rise in Sydenham. Next morning, those 2 bikes were seen. No one could have known it, but the robbers were practicing their getaway. In this alley by the State Cinema, they were seen talking to a man who was carrying a sports bag. This taxi driver saw them moments later.
2 bikes pulled out from the alleyway, and the only thing that struck me really was that they seemed very professional. It reminded me of courier drivers.
Hold it! Get down! Not there! Over there! Get down on the floor! Keep your heads down! Don't move!
Excuse me, can you help? There's been a hold-up at Lloyd's Bank.
You're joking, love?
This witness told the taxi driver who'd seen the motorcycles about half an hour earlier, and he got another driver to radio his base for help.
06 to back.
This motorist, meanwhile, was looking for a parking space, but changed his mind.
What's going on here then? It's an armed robbery. Has anybody called the police yet? I don't know. You got your lives! Stay where you are! Go.
They left behind £25,000. Did you see them weaving past traffic on Orsett Road? You might have noticed that the pillion passengers weren't wearing helmets. On Whitehall Road, a young man with bleached blonde hair had been minding the getaway vehicle. The blue hatchback has not been traced, but the Sierra was abandoned outside the bungalow in Parkside Road, where a blue hatchback had been seen a week before. Do you know where they went from here? Mr. Whitehill, there's a very big reward out on this, isn't there?
Yes, there is a £30,000 reward.
And the interesting thing is it's not out on recovery of the money, though an enormous amount was stolen, over £250,000. It's for the arrest and conviction of the men. Now, why is that?
This robbery took place in broad daylight in a busy street in a busy town, with many members of the public there, and was a great danger to the public, and I think this £30,000 reward is an inducement for people to give information to catch these robbers.
OK, clearly there are members of the underworld who might have heard rumours on this. There's a very big reward. Tell us about the good description we've got of one of the robbers.
The gunman was a white man. He was 5'8" to 5'10" tall. He was a muscular, stocky build, wearing a green combat jacket.
Right, what we're watching here is what's called an e-fit. There's an electronic version of a photo fit. Now, there was a description of two others, but not quite so good.
Yeah, the second man, the black man in the actual robbery itself, was 5'10" to 6 foot tall. Again, muscular build. He had a flat-top style haircut, razor cut at the sides, and was wearing a blue wind cheater.
Then, of course, there was the young man who was apparently guarding the Blue Sierra.
Yes, as we saw in the film, he had bleached hair, very neatly cut, and witnesses describe him as boyish, almost feminine looking.
Now, it's his car that hasn't been traced. The Sierra, of course, was abandoned.
That's right, and I'd like to emphasise that the hatchback, although it's portrayed in the reconstruction as a Fiesta, it may have been an Astra or a similar car, we just don't know.
OK, it's quite significant how those cars that were, how the car and the two bikes that were stolen for the raid came from various parts of London. There might be a pattern in that.
It may well be, and it may well be that someone knows of a connection between Kenley, Hackney, Sydenham and the Grays area.
Kenley is in the Croydon area, of course, and why would somebody have travelled all the way down to Croydon from East 8 or all the way up to East 8 from Croydon? Why that spread of thefts? The pattern might be helped to be solved by these helmets. Now, these are among the helmets that were ditched. This one's very distinctive, isn't it? Someone's going to recognise this one.
Yes, I'm sure someone must recognise this helmet. Just below the face visor, there are 6 holes drilled as extra air holes. And I'm sure that someone...
4 on one side, 2 on the other.
That's correct, and I'm sure that someone must recognise this helmet.
And they'll recognise how difficult it was to drill through, because there's an attempt at drilling
it may have been stolen from them, or they may have lent it to someone.
And this might also have been stolen. This is
a Nolan make, and the significant thing on this side is N33 Air System 1. That was dumped with the other helmet.
So if you made the holes in that helmet, or if you had this one stolen from you, if you can work out anything to do with the pattern of the theft of the motorbikes or of the car, if you've got any information at all on this case, remember that enormous reward. You can call us here on 01811 8055, or you can ring the incident room direct. That's on 0245 452 120. That's 0245, that's the code for Chelmsford, 452 120.